You know what I'm talking about. There's nothing like a great cup of coffee in the morning. Don't you love it? Admit it. You know you do. You know what I'm talking about, right? Come on. Just nod your head. Yes, you're absolutely right. You know what I mean. So good. Isn't this the best? Oh, I love it. Great cup of coffee. The flavor, the richness. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. This is Danny K. I am your lovable host with SonicFlare. Thank you for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, what we cover at SonicFlare is music, hi-fi records, vinyl, what have you, analog tapes, tapes in general, digital streaming, how it connects with hi-fi, how it connects with high-end audio, and how it brings about this incredibly rich musical experience that really has the power to transform your thinking, your day, your life, your month. It's truly amazing what music can do for you when you hear it reproduced at the appropriate level, scaled to your environment where you can enjoy it the best. So thank you for tuning in. We really appreciate your patronage. You know, a couple of weeks ago, I did a video segment with an artist spotlight deep dive into a band that really speaks to me on so many different levels. I'll put a link in the description box below, which of course is Yello. And it was just fascinating to talk to you guys about Yello. And in the comment section, I read so many people new to Yello, so many people obviously heard of Yello and love Yello. And it dawned on me, I was like, why don't I do something like that with a deep dive into a manufacturer, right? One of the things, I've been a hi-fi reviewer for over 20 years here in the US and internationally across the globe with a couple of magazines in Europe. And one of the things I always get asked by, people new to the hobby, by people in the hobby, what is the best? Danny, I have, X amount of dollars. What is the best that I can buy? What is the best loudspeaker? What's the best turntable? What's the best anything? And the problem is that it really is way more complicated than what is the best, because I feel that we have reached a level of engineering, of manufacturing, of leveraging technology to create products that are so amazing sounding, even in small packages these days. And obviously, I'm not speaking necessarily about your typical Apple HomePod, for $99, which is not a new scaled down version. They used to have the big HomePod, which I have, which is absolutely phenomenal at what it does. I'm talking about your typical sort of hi-fi, high-end audio component that starts at a price range where it becomes less about, hey, how cheaply and how inexpensively can we make this box for $500, and is more in line with, we're crossing a certain threshold of manufacturing, of build quality, of engineering, that the price point is sort of commensurate to that level of experience where it's really not about, is this best? It's more about what's the flavor, right? And I always felt, and this has been a huge, story that I always told, that, hi-fi and high-end audio is really more like race cars and sports cars being in your living room than anything else. At least I feel that way, right? And what I mean by that is it's not so much about the manufacturer, it's about the experience, right? And of course the manufacturer is tied into that experience because each manufacturer brings that experience that they feel they need to create into the realm of what's possible, of what they put into your living room. But it's more like, if I look at this Le Mans winning Porsche 917, hopefully you guys can see that. Beautiful collection, beautiful model, 1:18 scale. And you just imagine this car racing down the track. As I'm filming this, Le Mans is going on. 24 hours of Le Mans, what a racetrack, right? And so The sports car is the speaker. The sports car is the element that gives you that big experience. And the racetrack is the music that you play. And so whether this guy's running down Le Mans or if I look at this, Ferrari P330, also Le Mans winning car, it's the same concept, right? It's gosh, these cars were built for this experience to just jet down this racetrack. And the musical experience is similar in the sense that the loudspeakers that you have give you the ability to experience the racetrack that is the music that you play. And there's amazing music that's incredibly dynamic, and it's more like the Nürburgring, where it's you got tight turns, you got super high speed stuff, or it's more like the Hungaroring or Monte Carlo, or you go to like Spa, which is coming up after the summer break for the F1 guys out there, and it's got a combination of this super dynamic swings, right? And it comes down to, it's not, again, so much about best. It's not so much about, what can you afford that is the best. It's more about the experience that you get and the scale within that experience. And so, when I look at this little guy, much smaller in scale than the 118 model Porsche 917 or the P330 Ferrari that I just showed you guys. But it's the same thing, right? I mean, I look at the detail of this little guy, this Aston Martin LMP1 car from about 10 years ago. And, everything is scaled beautifully down, shrunk to size. And so, when I look at manufacturers, they have, obviously large speakers for, larger environments. And then they have that same sound and that same experience that they try to bring you at a lower level, right? And lower price point. And it's just a more scaled down version of that big sound. And so there are a lot of amazing speakers out there. But the one that I want to talk to you guys about today is really one that sort of ushered in this whole new era of high-end loudspeaker design. And that is, of course, none other than Wilson Audio, and of course the man that launched that incredible company close to 50 years ago now with Dave Wilson, right? And of course the beautiful speakers behind me, the XVXs, which are currently they're the penultimate speaker, depending on if you look at the Wham that sits above it as a production series speaker or not. But it is a limited speaker, the limited production run speaker, the Wham. And once that production run is, completed, there will not be another Wham built of that series. And so the XVX is the current pinnacle, so to speak. But then I also have the TuneTots, right? Wilson's smallest speaker, the most compact speaker. And, when I listen to these speakers, and this is really not so much a review, and I want to stress that this is not a sponsored video. This is literally just my opinion. Kind of like I did with the Yello deep dive video, like I said. I just want to highlight Wilson Audio as a manufacturer because I think they've created so much of this industry at the high end. And, it's so much of it is known and so much of it is really not known, right? And, I think back at the beginnings of Wilson Audio, and, Dave always said, when he was asked, hey, when he showed up at CES, I think it was like 75, 76, with the smallest speaker, or the really, I guess it didn't really have a name. It then became the Watt Puppy, or the Watt and the Puppy. And Wilson Audio, the Watt stands for Wilson Audio Wilson Audio Tiny Tot. And the Puppy then became the subwoofer system. And together it became known as the Watt Puppy. And really, that is the speaker that created and launched high-end audio into the realm that it is today, right? I mean, they've sold more pairs of Watt Puppies than any other manufacturer combined in that price range and price category over so many years and over so many decades indeed. And, you look at it today, And it's obviously no longer the Puppy. It became the Sasha DAW. And obviously, Wilson Audio is continuing to create this incredible technology and drive forward the development of speakers with, tweeters and mid-range modules and enclosure components and manufacturing technologies and crossover design. But when Dave Wilson, what made him so special, I think, and what really sort of speaks to me in the sense of what Wilson Audio represents, is that it's truly a brand that embraced music and how music live, non-amplified, can be brought into your home. Because Wilson Audio was really the heart of Dave Wilson as a recording engineer, right? I'm very glad and honored and blessed to have a couple of test pressings. This is the Waldstein Petrushka Wilson Audio recordings. You can get all these at Acoustic Sounds. They reissued them. But, I look at the, Music for Christmas, for example, beautiful, gorgeous recording that Dave Wilson engineered all of this. What's fascinating about this test pressing in particular, it has all the liner notes handwritten from Dave as he was listening to these test pressings. And, you go to something like, Winds of War and Peace with the great Lowell Graham conducting, absolutely bombastic symphonic orchestral music. If you were lucky to be at Rocky Mountain, I think it was 2013, they had Wilson Audio had a huge room over at I think it was the Hyatt Regency, and Lowell Graham was there, Dave Wilson was there, obviously introduced him. They were playing this record, and Lowell Graham, the conductor, spoke about the recording session. This is on the double 45, and it was just amazing, right? And so I think what's incredible about Dave Wilson is that he created music before he created loudspeakers to play back that music. Here's the beautiful Beethoven and Escu, fantastic record. Wonderful, wonderful. These are all the reissues. I really encourage you guys to get these if you haven't already. If you're into classical music, even if you're not into classical music, I mean, it just gives you an experience of Wilson Audio, what Wilson Audio represents and stands for. And so back in the 70s, when Dave Wilson was creating music and recording music and trying to transcribe that to a home experience, he felt that what was out there as far as loudspeakers were lacking, right? They didn't have the scale, they didn't have the depth, they didn't have the tone. And so he created his own first loudspeaker, like I said, the Watt. And then with that, when he brought it to CES, people were just like, whoa, dude, what, this is insane. I've never heard a little speaker sound so realistic, sound so real, bring back that emotion that I hear in the recording, but it's just not being transcribed into my living room. And so that was the birth of Wilson Audio, right? I mean, you can read up all the stories. He came home, he ordered books, the phone started ringing. His beautiful wife Cheryl was on the phone taking orders. Dave and his kids were working in the back, creating these loudspeakers, putting them together. And then, of course, through that, the birth of Wilson Audio, and then, of course, the Wham, the first generation Wham, which was just like an unbelievable Uber speaker. Right? I mean, considering at the time, nobody even thought about having something so monumental, right? This is the late 70s, early 80s, and really sort of, thinking outside of the box, so to speak, right? No pun intended, of creating a loudspeaker system that would just, whoa, man, if you have an incredible space to listen to it, if you have incredible electronics to power it with, and you want to bring that emotional connection to your home, well, the Wham is going to do it better than anything else in the market at the time. And, it was such an incredible success that he literally flew all over the world setting up these Wham speaker systems. And, I never really, I guess it was in the, 40, 50, 60 speaker models, I think, that he built. I may be wrong. Feel free to correct me if you know better, or put it in the description box below. But it was just absolutely incredible to have him create the speaker at that scale and level where you're like, whoa, Lowell Graham and his orchestra is right in front of you, right? And, obviously things continued. And I mean, when I really first started getting into Wilson Audio was like sort of the late 80s, early 90s. The Watt Puppy was in generation 3 or 4 at the time. And, I remember I came to LA in 95 and I went to LA Audio Video, which was this absolutely incredible toy store for high-end audio and hi-fi and anything really consumer electronics related. And I remember on the top floor, they had the Wilson Audio Grand Slam, which at the time, again, was their biggest speaker. And I remember listening, I think it was Michael Jackson Thriller. And it was just so insanely amazing sounding. I was like, whoa, dude, this is just crazy. This is that sports car. This is that 917, rushing through the Nürburgring or Le Mans or, Spa. Eau Rouge, right? That famous corner. And you could feel the G-forces, right? In the car. And I felt like when I was listening to these Grand Slams, man, it was just like, whoa. I can feel the power of the drum and, Michael Jackson, and just the experience was all right there in your face, so to speak, in your room, right? And so to me, it was one of those like, wow, magical moments of, this is Wilson Audio's best. And I'm not saying that there aren't speakers out there that, are not capable of replicating that. Of course there are. There's tons of them, right? Again, what I said earlier, I don't think it's so much about best as in, this is the best speaker. It's more about which brand do you feel like speaks to you, right? Which brand do you feel develops that experience that you're looking for at the emotional level that you connect with it, right? And obviously, it's all subjective, right? I mean, what one guy likes, another guy doesn't really care for, right? I'll be, the first to come out and say, the Japanese paper-made, 5-inch cone drivers, full range in boxes, driven by 2-watt, amplifiers. It's not my cup of tea, right? It doesn't give me that race car experience in my living room, that sports car experience. It's more like, it's more like a choo-choo train, right? Which is fine. I mean, there's people that appreciate that. I certainly wouldn't want to play Led Zeppelin on a speaker like that. I mean, I think you're going to blow the drivers out and tear up the amp in like a second, right? As soon as that first drum thwack hits you. Clearly Bob Ludwig did not use speakers like that for mastering Zeppelin 2, right? And so when you got to find that company that speaks to you emotionally, right? And to me, Wilson Audio is definitely one of those companies that does that. In fact, I remember one of the most, interesting conversations I had with Dave Wilson's sort of second in command, Peter McGrath. Peter has been brought on. He was a hi-fi store owner himself. Dave and Peter had known each other for decades and decades. And, finally, Dave asked Peter, also a recording engineer. Gee, I wonder what the connection was there. Very accomplished. If you haven't listened to Peter McGrath's recordings that he plays back on Wilson speakers at a hi-fi trade show or at, a salon or a store, I encourage you to go out and listen to them. They are absolutely the most amazing recordings of orchestral music that you can possibly imagine. And they sound absolutely incredible, obviously, on Wilson speakers. They sound incredible on, many other speakers too, but specifically, obviously, with regards to Wilson Audio. And so, Peter McGrath and I were sitting down. This was just before I bought my first pair of Wilson Audio speakers, which was the Alexia, the first generation Alexia in 2012 or 2011. And I asked him, I said, Peter, what makes Wilson Audio so special? There's all these other speaker manufacturers out there. What makes Wilson Audio so special? And, he came back with, which is kind of what I opened this whole dialogue with you guys with. Danny, it's pretty simple. Dave Wilson is a recording engineer. He knows what this is supposed to sound like in real life, and he's trying to recreate that in your living room experience. And when he told me that, and I had known that, and it's something that obviously, you realize, you've read about it, you hear about it. But when Peter McGrath, who he himself is a recording engineer, explained it to me, and said that, I was like, wow, a genuine light bulb went off. And I was like, you know what? I never really thought about it that way. And sure enough, I mean, when Peter McGrath came to set up my Alexias, I mean, I was just, happy as a clown, right? I mean, it was just absolutely incredible, the experience, the emotional connection I had. And then from the Alexias, I went to the Alex, and from the Alex in 2016, obviously, now I'm with my XVXs here in this absolutely gorgeous Olympia pearl color. And there's so many things about Wilson Audio that are just absolutely incredible, what they do and what they go through. You know, they employ about 55 people in Provo, Utah. Everything's made in America. Everything's made in Provo, Utah. What they do not make is made by suppliers within the general geographic area. And, the 55, call it 60 employees that they have, they're not getting paid minimum wage, right? I mean, they're able to have a life. They're able to afford a home. They're able to afford families. And so, what I'm getting at is it's not just the speaker that you're buying. You're buying the culture. You're buying, the what goes on behind the scenes, right? That the care they put into manufacturing a speaker, creating a speaker. On average, it's not like some of the other manufacturers where every year or every other year there seems to be like some new thing that's coming out, the next big thing, right? Kind of like what we know from our phones on the marketplace. It's like, oh, this new gizmo is going to take it to the next level. They're much more meticulous. They're much more Apple-like in that fashion. They have a North Star that is their beacon. It's their guiding light, and it's the best possible music experience that you can get in your home. And whatever they do is sort of under the umbrella of that North Star that they look for. And when they look out to create a new speaker, it has to be demonstrably better than what was there before, because then it would just be like, hey, we're just trying to flood the channel to sell something for the sake of selling something, and that's not what they do, right? And, when you look at the little TuneTot that I have, right, which is in my office system, which is Wilson's smallest speaker, obviously in some way a bit of an homage to the Tiny Tot back in the 70s, Dave's first speaker. So when you look at the TuneTot, when you look at, the XVX, there's definitely similarities, right? It's like I said, it's this little guy, right, next to the big model, right? They're both race cars, they're both sports cars, but they're just scaled down to different size, right? And so the TuneTot plays very similar. You get the same tonality, you get the same expression, you get the same emotion, but obviously in a much more scaled down package that you can enjoy it in your, secondary place of even if it's just your first place of listening in your living room, if you have a small living room, if it's in your office or your den or your bedroom, wherever it may be, right? I've even seen some installs where this is like in a really high-end kitchen space, and I'm just like, well, that's amazing, right? Not that I would probably do something like that, but hey, good for you, right? But what I'm getting at is you get into the TuneTot and you get the whole experience. It's not just a chopped off price point that they created. Oh, we'll just put a couple of drivers in an enclosure. No, the X material and the material that they used in creating the Wilson Audio TuneTot is done by the same engineers that the XVX was designed with, right? The same amount of meticulousness in putting it together, creating a cabinet that minimizes resonances, creating a cabinet that was really designed to be a speaker that you can mount either on a stand or put it up against a wall in close proximity like it would be in an office setup or a den or your bedroom. You can experience that same musical impact, right? And really, they sound so similar. I mean, I'm not kidding. They really do. I challenge you. It's almost like, go out and listen to a pair of TuneTots and then have them set you up, the Sasha DAW or the Alexia Series 2 or the Alex V, and you'll hear that same expression throughout the speaker range. And if that's the Wilson sound is what you dig and what you like, you'll immediately feel at home. And you feel that, that price that you just paid for the TuneTots, you didn't get, like I said, a chopped off speaker, but you got the actual Wilson audio experience right out of the box, right? And, going back to the factory, when you visit the factory, man, they've got CNC machines of the highest quality that are incredibly expensive. People always ask me, well, why are these speakers so incredibly expensive, right? I mean, it's insane. It's the price of a house. It's the price of a genuine sports car in your living room, right? And there's obviously all sorts of market force reasons behind it. I mean, it's not like they're selling, millions of these. They're not even selling tens of thousands of these. They're not even selling thousands of these, right? It costs money to engineer these speakers. It costs money to buy the CNC machines that cut the material science that they apply to the enclosure is of the highest level. They've got laser vibrometers that, measure the output of the panels with regards to the output of the music to make sure that, there's no vibrations. Why is that important? Because they feel that the speaker should be as inert as possible so that the driver can create the music, not the speaker around it, the box around it. And so, part of Wilson's North Star approach has been the time alignment, right? That's been like their claim that, they feel very strongly about time alignment. And, personally, I think time alignment obviously is very important. I think phase is also incredibly important. And, these are this newest generation of Wilson speakers are incredibly phase coherent. So you get that insane 3D sound image, that cinemascope sound that I always talk about, that, I really hear immediately when I listen to a speaker. Once you hear it, you can't unhear it. And when I hear other speakers that do not have that phase coherence and time alignment, I feel that it's off, right? I feel like you're not getting the image quality. You're not getting the scale. You're not getting the sound that you could. And so everything that they do is within those parameters of that North Star. Each individual module that you see in the back can be adjusted fore, aft, up, and down to get that time alignment perfect. And that's Wilson's North Star. And other companies obviously have other North Stars, or in some cases they frankly don't have a North Star, and you really see it, right? It's, they come up with a speaker today, and then tomorrow's speaker looks completely different. It has no common design theme, no common design language, no common engineering aspect. And you're like, okay, well, what happened? They just woke up one day and said, oh, what we were doing up until then was all, junk. Throw it all on AudioGone, right? Or eBay or whatever. Probably not eBay, but you know what I mean, right? And then 2 years go by, 3 years go by, and yet again, a completely different looking loudspeaker, right? And you're like, okay, well, now what happened, right? Again, did you just wake up? And so what I'm getting at is, with Wilson Audio, you have that North Star, and you can see it. If you look through their catalog, if you look through their online pages, you see that every speaker has some commonality of engineering, of design, in that common language that Dave Wilson started with. And, man, it's like, again, going back to the car, the common theme around cars and sports cars is, you look at cars and there's a common design theme around them, right? And so that's one of the things that I really admire about Wilson Audio, where there aren't really that many companies around that have that common theme that goes through it. And it's truly incredible to hear that, and it's truly incredible to see that, not only in marketing material, which obviously is designed to promote and sell the company, but also like in actually they live it, they breathe it, right? They're incredible people that work there. When you walk through the factory, everybody genuinely, I think they're probably among the companies that have the longest longevity of employees, with very little turnover, right? I've been going to the factory for going on 10, 12 years now, and I see many of the same people. Sure, there's obviously people that come and go and stuff, but you see many of the same people that I met 10 years ago they're still perfecting their craft. They're still working on incredible craftsmanship that they create and that they go for. And it's truly a sight to be seen, right? So, to me, again, Wilson Audio, is it the best loudspeaker? It's the best loudspeaker that I've heard in my living room over the course of several living rooms over the last sort of 10, 12 years that I've had Wilson speakers. And, they bring an emotional impact to the sound, to the musical experience, whether it's you're listening to, Beethoven, right? Frankly, whether it's a Wilson recording, right? Or you're listening to something like this Record Store Day release of Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, right? And, completely, these two recordings couldn't be further apart, and yet you get each recording from its own element within what each artist was trying to create, right? And so, to me, that, it's just amazing. When you hear it, I wish I could bottle up the sound that I get in my living room and send it your way so you can listen to it and experience it, right? And no, I'm not going to be recording with a microphone. Guys, please, I don't even want to go there, right? It sounds nothing. When you play back those recordings, it sounds nothing like the real thing. Trust me. Don't fool yourself listening to these recordings that some people post on and you're like, oh, wow, I get the impression. No, it really doesn't sound anything like what you're listening to. There's so many variables involved. I'm not even going to go there, right? But again, I wish I could bottle it up and send you that experience because it's truly majestic, right? Yesterday, I was playing Alan Parsons' project. I have a copy of a tape dub from a source of mine, a secret source. And I was playing Turn of a Friendly Card, peaking at probably 1.2 kilowatts, at least according to the Macintosh view meters. And man, wide open cut, right? No dynamic compression. And holy crap, man, it just sounds insane, right? It's like, not that I listen to that level all the time. In fact, very rarely, because it is so insanely loud. But sometimes you just gotta feel that experience, right? And it just has to jump at you and go. And man, you crank up to 11, right? And it's like, whoa, it just hits you. You're like that Maxell guy in the commercial back in the 80s, right? So anyway, Wilson Audio to me, as it is today, obviously Dave Wilson passed, but Daryl Wilson has taken over the company, inherited the company from his father. And, I really feel like he has taken the company to the next level with regards to development, carrying forward Dave's themes and ideas and thoughts on how to create the next big speaker and so on and so forth. And it's magical to watch them grow and watch them develop. And, I always ask myself, gosh, how can it sound any better, right, than what I'm hearing now? How could it possibly get any better? And I remember when I heard one of the final prototypes of the XVX at Dave's house, this was in 2019, he had a mono setup, so he had one XVX right next to the Wilson Alexandria Series 2, which was then their top model. And we were listening to mono. In fact, we were listening to Cheryl, a recording that Dave had done of Cheryl, who's a very accomplished opera singer. And I tell you, just when you figured, man, the Alexandria sounds so incredible, the XVX just completely destroyed it, right? It really did. There was so much more information coming through, and you're like, my God, how do they do it? And so I'm sure that as time goes on, the next series of XVX is going to be better than this series, just like Alex V is better than the original Alex, which I had for, 5 years. And just like the Alexia Series 2 now is better than the original Alexia from, 2011. And so, I'll just close it up with this. To me, these are absolutely incredible speakers. I can get fully behind the company. I understand what they're doing. I appreciate what they're doing. They're trying to lift the general industry up. And, I think in many ways, a lot of companies would love to be like Wilson Audio, creating that they've created that bridge where, even outside of high-end audio, there's not many companies. I mean, Macintosh is one, right? Just because of, obviously the blue meters and, just they've been around for, 60, 70 years now almost. But not that many companies have managed to make that jump where, if you're out in the consumer electronics space or home audio space or consumer audio space, that, people know about Wilson Audio, but they may not know about Wilson Audio from the name, but they know what they look like, right? They've seen the speakers before because they have that very avant-garde looking shape, form follows function, right? And so, anyway, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this interesting. Please feel free to drop the comments below. This wasn't really intended to be a review of the speakers and more of an expose into Wilson Audio and why I personally dig about Wilson Audio. And thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you guys always. We'll see you guys next time. Cheers.